12 months ago, they were sitting at 2026 as the team nobody wants to see. And the crazy part is that most of the league still thinks they are in the middle of a rebuild. 12 months ago, they were sitting at 1 win and 7 losses, written off, forgotten, treated like background noise while everyone talked about other stories. Then the switch flipped. The offense stopped looking like a patchwork group and started to look like a real problem. The building found an identity around number 6, and every game down the stretch felt less like a survival fight and more like the start of something that could last for years. This is not a feel-good stretch run. This is the early chapter of a takeover that people are only starting to notice. What nobody is talking about is how quickly every piece lined up once Tyler Shough settled in, and the organization committed to building around him. You now have a young passer who already showed in his rookie year that he can drag a broken huddle to life, a true number 1 receiver in Chris Olave, who kept producing even when defenses knew the ball was coming his way, and a front office that finally has room to breathe with the cap and a premium pick waiting near the top of the draft. This offense is not built on one star carrying everything on his back. It is built on the idea that if you give Tyler Shough real protection, real weapons, and real continuity, you can turn this unit from dangerous in flashes into something that controls games every single week. That is the part the rest of the NFC South has not adjusted to yet. The twist is on the other side of the ball, where Brandon Staley has already taken a group led by Chase Young, Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, Jonas Sanker, and Kool-Aid McKinstry, and molded it into a defense that played like a top group in year 1 of his system and still has room to grow. Add in the fact that the general manager, the head coach, and the locker room are all moving in the same direction, while the Falcons, Buccaneers, and Panthers are still trying to answer basic questions about their future. And you start to see why people inside New Orleans feel like the window opens right now. But none of this means anything if number 6 is not the real deal. So the next thing we have to unpack is exactly what Tyler Shough did in that first year, and why the players around him already act like he is the one who changes everything. But before we get into that, hit that like and subscribe button for more Saints and all the NFL content. Can we hit 250 likes on this video? The New Orleans Saints thought they were just drafting a quarterback. Instead, they found a tone setter for the whole building. When Tyler Shough stepped into the huddle, the season did not magically become easy, but the energy changed fast. He stood in against pressure, kept his eyes down the field, and took hits that would shake most young passers without flinching or pointing fingers. You could feel it in the way veterans leaned in after bad drives, in the way the sideline stayed locked in when the scoreboard looked ugly. This was not a typical rookie who needed the game to slow down for him. This was a young leader who forced everyone around him to raise their standard. What nobody talks about enough is how simple Tyler Shough plays the position when everything is on fire around him. He does not chase hero throws on every snap. He takes the easy completions when they are there, then cuts loose when the defense gets greedy and leaves space behind them. You see it on 3rd and long when he climbs the pocket instead of bailing, trusts Chris Olave to separate, and drops a throw where only his guy can reach it. You see it when the first raid is covered, the rush is closing, and instead of panicking, he uses his legs to steal a fresh set of downs, then walks back to the huddle like it is just part of the job. That calm edge, that mix of control and aggression, is why teammates started treating him less like a kid learning the playbook and more like the engine of the offense by the end of the year. Inside that locker room, the belief around Tyler Shough is real, because the little things match the big moments. Veterans like Cam Jordan and Demario Davis see a young dad who shows up earlier, stays later, and never plays the blame game when protection breaks or a receiver drops a ball. Guys on offense talk about how he checks on them after big hits, how he remembers small details from film and brings them up on the sideline in live time, how he keeps the same voice whether they are trailing or rolling. That is why the Saints front office is under so much pressure right now. They know they cannot waste this kind of presence. The question hanging over everything is simple and huge at the same time. if you give Tyler Shough one more true difference maker outside and lock in his protection, how far can this offense really go? And what happens to the rest of the NFC South when that answer shows up on the field? The New Orleans Saints are quietly stacking an offense that can hurt you from every direction. And it is not just about Tyler Shough throwing darts. You look across this skill group and see Chris Olave carving up coverages, Juwan Johnson bullying safeties in the seam, and backs like Kendre Miller ready to turn checkdowns into real gains instead of empty touches. Then there is the wave behind them. Names like Devon Vele, Bub Means, Jalen Polk, and Trey Palmer fighting to grab a bigger role, each with a different style, speed, or catch radius that gives this offense a new wrinkle. It stops feeling like one star, dragging a thin roster, and starts feeling like layers, like matchups that defensive coordinators have to worry about all week. Because taking away one option no longer solves the problem. For all of that to matter, the big men in front have to hold up. And this is where New Orleans might shock people the most. When Eric McCoy is on the field, you see how clean the pocket can look, how comfortable Tyler Shough becomes when he can hitch and fire without hands in his face. Around him, you have Cesar Ruiz with plenty of power, younger pieces such as Nick Saldiveri, and the chance to bring back someone like Luke Fortner, who proved he can step in at center and keep the offense on track. Add in bookend tackles who already know this system, and you start to picture something very simple but very scary. A season where the quarterback is not dodging free rushers on every third snap, where the run game has real lanes, where play action becomes a weapon instead of a hope. That is when all those pass catchers stop being names on a depth chart and start looking like a group that can live in the end zone. Then there is the move that could flip the whole league conversation, using that top 10 pick on Carnell Tate and dropping a fresh rookie star right into the middle of this build. At Ohio State, he became known for tracking the ball in the air like it was tied to him by a string, winning tough catches in traffic, and staying locked in when safeties tried to knock the ball loose at the last second. The exact kind of traits that make life easy for a young quarterback who loves to give his guy a chance. Picture Chris Olave stressing timing routes, Carnell Tate stretching the field and dominating contested catches, Devon Vele working the in-between space, while Juwan Johnson and the backs clean up everything underneath. And suddenly, you see why this front office is so excited about what comes next. And the wild part is that this is only half the story, because while everyone debates how to guard all these weapons, the defense is getting ready to roll into year 2 under Brandon Staley and make Sundays even tougher for anyone who lines up across from New Orleans. The New Orleans Saints might have an offense that grabs headlines, but the thing that can rip games away from people is this defense that Brandon Staley is shaping into a monster. Last season was supposed to be a learning year for a new scheme and a shuffled depth chart. Yet by December, you could already see offenses getting stuck in mud against New Orleans. Rush looks changed right before the snap. Coverage shells did not match what quarterbacks thought they saw, and drives that used to feel automatic suddenly ended with frustrated punts. Now take that same structure, give the players a full offseason of comfort, and imagine what it looks like when they are not thinking through calls, but attacking on instinct from the first snap of week 1. Up front, it starts with chaos and pride in equal measure. Chase Young is playing like a star who finally found the right home, winning one-on-ones and blowing up run plays before they ever breathe, while Cam Jordan refuses to age the way the league expected, still setting the edge and punishing tackles who relax for even a second. Around them, you have Carl Granderson hunting in obvious pass situations, big bodies like Devon Shough eating space inside, and linebackers such as Demario Davis. Pete Werner and Danny Stutzman flying downhill when Staley turns up the pressure. Then you look behind them, and it gets even more dangerous. Justin Reed quarterbacks the back end, Kool-Aid McKinstry and Quincy Riley squeeze throwing windows outside, and Jonas Sanker, Alante Taylor, and Julian Blackman give Staley the freedom to spin safeties, roll coverages, and disguise blitzes without leaving easy answers in the middle of the field. That is how you build a group that can finish as a true top 3 unit, not through one superstar, but through layers of players who all fit the same aggressive vision. The wild part is that this kind of depth and quality on defense usually comes with a heavy price in the modern league, and that is exactly where the next chapter of this story gets interesting. Keeping veterans like Cam Jordan and Demario Davis in the building, rewarding pieces such as Chase Young and Justin Reed, and still having room to chase one more impact defender on the open market should not be possible for a team that used to live in cap trouble. Yet the Saints front office has quietly set itself up to turn the money side into a weapon instead of a weakness, which means every decision they make over the next few months can either lock in this defensive window or shorten it. So the real question becomes how Mickey Loomis and his staff turn contracts, restructures, and tough choices into fuel for a title run. And that takes us straight into the salary magic behind this New Orleans reset. There was a time when people turned the New Orleans Saints cap chart into a joke. To scare everyone are the reason they can. To scare everyone are the reason they can push for a real run in 2026. The front office has mapped out a path to create over $60 million in space without gutting the core. And that flips the whole script. Instead of asking who they have to lose, they can ask who they want to add around Tyler Shough, while still taking care of the stars who already changed this roster. That is not luck. That is planning. From Mickey Loomis, turning the cap from a wall into a doorway. The quiet trick behind it is simple on the surface, but brutal to manage year after year. And the Saints have learned how to live in that world better than almost anyone. Take a player like Chase Young or Juwan Johnson or Justin Reed. You look at their big salary for this season, you slice a chunk of it into a signing bonus, and you spread that part across future years while the player gets the money up front. On paper, the cap hit drops. In the locker room, the player feels valued, and the team suddenly has space to fix a weak spot at guard or add another weapon for Tyler Shough. Do that smartly with pillars such as Erik McCoy, maybe even with veterans like Cam Jordan or Demario Davis, and you can free real money without breaking the bond in the building. The hard part is knowing exactly how far you can push that button before the bill catches up. That is where this offseason becomes a test of judgment, not just creativity. Mickey Loomis cannot simply restructure every contract and celebrate. He has to decide who is part of the next 3 years and who was mainly part of the last 3. Some deals scream for fresh terms or incentives. Some need a small adjustment, and a few may need a full reset if the team wants to stay young, hungry, and flexible. Those choices land on real names that fans care about, like Alvin Kamara, Erik McCoy, Cesar Ruiz, Carl Granderson, and Jordan Howden. And each case is different. The Saints can afford to be bold with the cap now, but how they handle those veterans will show whether they are building a window that stays open or just cracking it for one season. And that takes us straight into the list of tough but respectful decisions waiting on this front office. The easiest mistake a front office can make is to chase headlines by cutting big names just to prove they are serious. The New Orleans Saints are taking a different path with Alvin Kamara. His number on the books is heavy. His touches are not what they were in his peak, but inside that building, they still see a player who sets standards in the locker room and gives the offense a calm outlet when the play breaks. The question is not, do you still like him? But can you keep him at a price that fits the new window? That means real talks about a softer cap number, possible incentives that reward production, and a structure that lets him finish his story in New Orleans without blocking the growth of Kendre Miller and the next back they bring in. It is not a cold goodbye story. It is a smart reset that tries to keep a core leader while freeing space for the roster to breathe. On the line, the choices get even sharper because protection for Tyler Shough is the one thing this team cannot play games with. Erik McCoy is the perfect example of how messy that can be. When he is healthy, the middle of the pocket is clean, run lanes look clear, and the whole offense moves with rhythm. When he is out, you feel the drop-off right away. So the front office has to weigh every snap he has missed against the level he reaches when he is on the field and decide if that long-term price still makes sense. With Cesar Ruiz, the conversation is different. The talent is obvious, the flashes are strong, but the cap figure does not match the inconsistency, which pushes talks toward a restructure, a trade, or one last prove its stretch at a lower cost. The goal is simple: turn the interior line into a strength without disrespecting veterans who fought through the ugly parts of this transition. Then you get to the names that tell you how bold the Saints are willing to be on defense and on the depth chart. Carl Granderson is a good player who has given them real production, but if Chase Young is your tone setter off the edge and Cam Jordan is still playing at a high level, you have to ask if paying starter money for a rotational role makes sense, or if a cleaner fix is a restructure that slides some of that hit into the future. With Jordan Howden, the issue is not talent, it is opportunity. Jonas Sanker exploded onto the scene, Julian Blackmon brings proven starting quality, and the safety room is stacked. So you have to decide if keeping another solid piece in a crowded group is the best use of a roster spot and $1 million or so in space. Every one of these calls connects directly to what comes next. The spots you clear, the veterans you keep, the contracts you tweak, all of that shapes how aggressive you can be with that early first-round pick. Which is why the next step in this plan is so important: how the Saints use that draft to build around Tyler Shough and squeeze every drop out of his rookie contract. For the New Orleans Saints, the biggest play of the year is not a throw from Tyler Shough. It is what they do at pick number 8 and through the rest of the draft, because a quarterback on a rookie contract only becomes a real weapon if you keep stacking impact talent around him. EGOT, that top pick, is their chance to land a blue chip piece at wide receiver, tackle, edge, or even running back. Whether it is someone like Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Love, David Bailey, or another premium prospect who makes life easier for Tyler Shough and fits with weapons like Chris Olave, Devon Vele, Bub Means, Jalen Polk, and Kendre Miller. While the middle rounds are where they must find the next Jonas Sanker type starter, add interior line help to push Cesar Ruiz and Nick Saldiveri, and grab more firepower next to Juwan Johnson and in Brandon Staley's defense. If this class hits, the Saints will not just have a fun offense, they will have a deep, cheap, homegrown roster built perfectly around number 6 that can flip the NFC South race and stay on top instead of just visiting it for one season. The New Orleans Saints have gone from NFC South afterthought to real worst to first threat, built around Tyler Shough on a rookie deal, an offense loaded with weapons, a Brandon Staley defense that already looks top tier, and Mickey Loomis finally holding real cap flexibility. While the Falcons search for answers, the Buccaneers reset, and the Panthers try to prove they are for real, New Orleans has a clear plan that runs through young core pieces like Chris Olave, Chase Young, Devon Vele, Jonas Sanker, and Kool-Aid McKinstry, with a premium top 10 pick still to spend. If that pick hits, the right veterans are kept, and Tyler Shough makes the natural jump from strong rookie year to full command. The Saints stop being a fun late season story and become the team that can take the NFC South and make everyone rethink those easy win games once January football arrives.